Ezekiel Chapter 1. Now it came to pass in the 30th year, in the 4th month, in the 5th day of the month, as I was among the captives by the river of Chebar, that the heavens were opened, and I saw visions of God. 30th year, 4th month, 5th day, Chebar, heavens were opened. Ezekiel 1:1 equals days of Noah. 30 years. Ezekiel 4:6. 1 day equals 1 year. 30 times 24 hours equals 720 hours. 4, the number of months, equals 120 days. 5, the number of days, equals 120 hours. 720 plus 120 plus 120 equals 960. The number of hours in 40 days. 30 times 4 times 5 equals 600. 30 times 120 times 120 equals 432,000, which is equal to the radius of the sun in miles. 600 equals the flood age of Noah. 360 days is equal to a Bible year. 600 times 360 equals 216,000, equals half the radius of the sun in miles. 216,000 equals 600 times 60 times 6 equals the number of the beast. 216,000 joules equals 1 hour of work for a 60-watt light bulb. Goliath wore 600 shekels on his spear. He was 6 cubits tall, and he fell 6 cubits forward at a gravity of 10 newtons, which is equal to 216,000 joules of work. 432,000 is equal to 144,000 times 3. Revelation mentions the number 144,000 a total of 3 times. There are 144,000 seconds and 40 hours. Moses' life is divided into 3 40-year segments. 144,000 seconds times 3, or 40 hours times 3, equals 120 hours, equals 5 days. Separated by his growing to adulthood, fleeing from Egypt, and his return to lead his people out. Acts 7, 23, 30, and 36. Josephus refers to a great year as 600 years. The Maya count 5,126 little years to make up one great year, which this puts the beginning of the present world, the 4th according to the Maya, to around 3104 BC, the approximate date of the worldwide flood as reported by the Sumerians. 3104 BC is when an extremely rare planetary alignment happened. 3104 minus the age of Noah, 600, is equal to 2504 BC. This is when the Giza pyramids were finished in 2504 BC. The Giza pyramids had a total of 144,000 casing stones that covered Giza at one point. 600, the age of Noah, plus 14, the number of clean beasts aboard the ark, plus 4, the number of unclean beasts aboard the ark, plus 14, the number of fowls of the air on the ark, plus 7, the number of days to pass before the waters were to come, plus 8, the number of members in Noah's family on the ark, plus 4, the 2 and 2 creepers in Genesis 7:9, plus 15, Genesis 7:15, the height of the waters raised, equals 666, the number of the beast. 40 days equals 960 hours. There are 960 breaths in a single hour for an average human being. Genesis 7:17 equals 40 days. Revelation 18:17. For in 1 hour so great riches is come to naught, and every shipmaster, and all the company of ships and sailors, and as many as trade by sea, stood afar off. 40 days and 40 nights equals 960 divided by 2 equals 480, 2 sets of them. 1 Kings 6:1 marks the 480th year as the call for the temple. Revelation 8:1, and when he had opened the seventh seal, there was silence in heaven about the space of half an hour. Half hour equals 480 breaths. 40 days and 40 nights equals 960 hours total. However, if you do the 40 days plus 40 days, it's 960 plus 960, plus the dimensions of the ark during that time, 300 plus 50 plus 30, which gives you a total of 2300, which is equivalent to Daniel 8's prophecy. The ark held 10 commandments in Moses' time. 150 divided by 15 is equal to 10. 150 being the days the waters prevailed, and 15 being the height of water in cubits. 30 years. What's so important about it? Luke 3:23, when he began his ministry, Jesus himself was about 30 years of age, being, as was supposed, the son of Joseph, the son of Eli. Here in Luke 3:23, we notice Jesus was age 30 when he began his ministry. If you've read the Bible before, you would know that this was also the year that he was baptized. Leviticus 27:3, and thy estimation shall be of the male from 20 years old even unto 60 years old. Even thy estimation shall be 50 shekels of silver, after the shekel of the sanctuary. And if it be a female, then thy estimation shall be 30 shekels. Notice in Leviticus 27:3 and 4, we see a range of ages, age 20 to 60, which includes the age 30, and the number of shekels that this age group is valued at. One valuation for the male is 50, whereas the other 30 for the female. Zechariah 11:12 and 13. I said to them, if it is good in your sight, give me my wages, but if not, never mind. So they weighed out 30 shekels of silver as my wages. Then the Lord said to me, throw it to the potter, that magnificent price at which I was valued by them. So I took the 30 shekels of silver and threw them to the potter in the house of the Lord. Now notice that 30 shekels was the wage for Zechariah, a magnificent price. Wasn't this the price of a female? Also, notice how it is then thrown to the potter in the house of the Lord. Isn't the bride of Christ referred to as the church? Isn't this also a reference to Judas and his throwing the 30 shekels into the temple of the Lord? The price in which Jesus was valued paid for the temple at the valuation of a female between the age of 20 and 60. Other references to the number 30. Now let's look at Jeremiah 38:10. Then the king commanded Ebed-melech the Ethiopian. Remember, wife of Moses was Ethiopian, or a Midianite, saying, take 30 men from under your authority and bring up Jeremiah the prophet from the cistern before he dies. For those of you who doubt the information that Moses' wife was both Ethiopian and a Midianite, being the same thing, visit the verse Exodus 18:1. Now Moses' father-in-law, Jethro, the priest of Midian. And this is how you know that Moses' wife was a Midianite, because she was direct lineage from Jethro. Compare this with Genesis 41:46. Now Joseph was 30 years old when he stood before Pharaoh, king of Egypt. And Joseph went out from the presence of Pharaoh and went through all the land of Egypt. Now, if you think that Moses' wife is the only one dealing with the Midianites and Moses, you would be wrong. Joseph was sent into captivity by none other than the Midianites. If you need proof, visit Genesis 37, verse 36. And it says, "And the Midianites sold him unto Egypt, into Potiphar, an officer of Pharaoh's, and captain of the guard." Genesis 37:25. And they sat down to eat bread, and they lifted up their eyes and looked, and behold, a company of Ishmaelites came from Gilead with their camels, bearing spicery and balm and myrrh, going to carry it down to Egypt. Ishmaelites from Gilead equal Midianite merchants that bought Joseph. Moses' wife equals an Ethiopian equals a Cushite equals the daughter of Jethro, the priest of Midian. In other words, Ishmaelites equal Gilead equals Midian equals Ethiopia equals the land of Cush. If you take a look at this map, you'll notice that the land of the Medes is also the land of the Magi. If this name sounds familiar, it's because of the story of the New Testament in which the Magi came bearing gifts to none other than Mary, mother of Jesus. Something you should know about the name Mary. It is also the name of a location on ancient maps for Mary, Syria. And when they came to Marah, they could not drink of the waters of Marah, for they were bitter. Therefore the name of it was called Marah. This is found in Exodus chapter 15. If you look at the etymology of the name Mary, you'll notice it comes from Mara. I would also like you to notice that it can also mean myrrh. Ruth 1:20. "Do not call me Naomi," she replied. "Call me Mara, because the Almighty has dealt quite bitterly with me." Ruth 1:2. "The name of the man was Elimelech, and the name of his wife Naomi, and the name of his two sons Mahlon and Chilion, Ephrathites of Bethlehem, Judah. They came into the country of Moab and continued there." Numbers 33:9. "They set out from Marah and came to Elim, where there were 12 springs and 70 palm trees, and they camped there." Luke 8:1. "And it came to pass afterward that he went throughout every city and village, preaching and showing the glad tidings of the kingdom of God." Compare this with visions of God in Ezekiel 1:1. "And the 12 were with him." Think 12 springs. Verse 2. "And certain women which had been healed of evil spirits and infirmities." Mary. Think waters of Marah, called Magdalene. This translates of Magdala or Migdal, out of whom went 7 devils. Luke 10:1. "After these things the Lord appointed other 70, think 70 palms, also, and sent them 2 and 2 before his face into every city and place, whither he himself would come." Based upon this information, Bethlehem is equal to Elim. Magdalene of Galilee is equal to Migdal. So if Migdal is Galilee, that makes the sea in which Israel crossed out of Egypt the sea of Galilee. And based upon the ancient map shown earlier, Elim is another name for Elam, which makes the Persian Gulf the Red Sea. Number 30 and 300 and Midian. 2 Samuel 23:18. Abishai, the brother of Joab, the son of Zeruiah, was chief of the 30, and he swung his spear against 300 and killed them, and had a name as well as the three. Judges 6:11. And there came an angel of the Lord and sat under an oak which was in Ophrah, that pertained unto Joash, think Joab, the Abizrite, think Abishai, and his son Gideon threshed wheat by the winepress to hide it from the Midianites. Judges 7:7. And the Lord said unto Gideon, by the 300 men that lacked will I save you, and deliver the Midianites into thine hand, and let all the other people go every man unto his place. Judges 7:22. And the 300 blew the trumpets, and the Lord set every man's sword against his fellow, even throughout all the host. And the host fled to Beth Shittah and Zererath, think Zeruiah, and to the border of Abel Meholah, unto Tabbath. 1 Kings 10:17. He made 300 shields of beaten gold, using 3 minas of gold. Refer to the 3 mentioned in 2 Samuel 2:18 on each shield. And the king put them in the house of the forest of Lebanon. Lebanon is equal to Gilead, is equal to the house of Judah. See Jeremiah 22:6 for details. Judges 15:4. And Samson went and caught 300 foxes, and took firebrands, and turned tail to tail, and put a firebrand in the midst between 2 tails. And when he had set the brands on fire, he let them go into the standing corn of the Philistines, and burn up both the shocks and also the standing corn, with the vineyards, think winepress, and olives. Samson offered a prize of 30 sheets and 30 change of garments to 30 men if they answered a riddle within a week. 2 Chronicles 14:9. Now Zerah, think Zeruiah, the Ethiopian, think Midian, came out against them with an army of 1,000,000 men and 300 chariots. And he came to Marashah, think waters of Marah. 800 equals the number of years after Jared begat Enoch, found in Genesis 5:19. Enoch lived 300 years after he begat Methuselah, found in Genesis 5:22. 800 plus 300 equals 1100, equals the number of shekels used to tempt Delilah to betray Samson. The mother of Micah, Delilah, cursed 1100 shekels in Judges 17:2. Something to think about. European hornet colonies often contain 300 or more workers by September or October, a maximum of 800 to 1,000 workers in each nest. You might be wondering why I'm showing you a locust chart. Well, a locust chart is very similar to a wasp chart when it comes to the life cycle. And you'll notice there is a 5-month period from the hatching to full adulthood. And there's usually about 1 month of laying eggs, which is a total of 6 months. So from one generation to another, you have a total of 6 months plus 6 months, but 5 months of the life cycle. This is the normal cycle for most locust or bee-type insects. In this chart, you'll notice that there are 5 stages to a locust life cycle. These 5 stages are referred to as the 5 instars. Revelation 9, 1, and 5. And the 5th angel, think 5th instar, sounded, and I saw a star fall from heaven unto the earth, and to him was given the key of the bottomless pit. And to them it was given that they should not kill them, but that they should be tormented 5 months. Think 150 days equals 120 plus 30. And their torment was as the torment of a scorpion when he striketh a man. Joseph was taken out of prison, which led to him standing before Pharaoh at the age of 30. The fact that 30 men were used to release Jeremiah is not a coincidence, but rather a deliberate choice. The 30 men signify the age, as well as the shekel of the sanctuary used to purchase the bride. 30 also happens to be a common age in which significant kings began to rule, such as Saul and David. 30 years. 1 Samuel 13:1. Saul was 30 years old when he began to reign, and he reigned 42 years over Israel. Saul reigned 42 years. 42 is very significant as it pertains to the number of months the 2 witnesses roamed the earth. 42 is also the number of generations in the line of Christ Jesus. 42 months also pertains to the number of months it takes to make wine. After the mentioning of the 42 generations of Jesus, the first miracle performed by Jesus is none other than turning water into wine. 2 Samuel 5:4. David was 30 years old when he became king, and he reigned 40 years. Following the baptism of Jesus at age 30, Jesus went into the wilderness for 40 days and 40 nights. Is it a coincidence, or is it tied to the 40 years of King David? 30 plus 40 equals age 110. This is the year Joshua died. Ezekiel 40:17. Then he brought me into the outer court, and behold, there were chambers and a pavement made for the court all around. 30 chambers faced the pavement. Here in Ezekiel 40:17, we see the number 30 tied to the chambers made for the court. Gentiles are given the court for 42 months in Revelation 11. 30 times 42 equals 1260, equals the number of days in 42 months. So now we see the connection between Saul and David as the 2 witnesses. Interesting. 4th month. Returning to Ezekiel 1:1, the 4th month is mentioned after the 30th year. Having heard how special the number 30 is throughout the Bible, surely the 4th month won't disappoint. 4 months equals 120 days equals 30 times 4. Seems to me the number 30 is already directly connected to the 4th month. Ezekiel 41:6. The side chambers were in 3 stories, one above another, and 30 in each story. And the side chambers extended to the wall which stood on their inward side all around, that they might be fastened and not be fastened into the wall of the temple itself. In chapter 41:6 of Ezekiel, we notice the number 30 in each of the 3 side chambers. There were also 3 floors in Noah's ark, not including the 4th floor window. 30 times 4 equals 120, equals the number of days man was limited to in Genesis chapter 6. It also ties back to the 120 hours in relation to 5 days. which is in Ezekiel 1:1, and the 120 days and 4 months. In other words, the number 120 and 30 are not only tied to the two witnesses, but to the ark itself. Also, 120 plus 30 equals 150, which is the number of days it took for the waters of Noah to begin to abate in Genesis chapter 7. Fifth day. Ezekiel 1:2, in the 5th day of the month, which was the 5th year of King Jehoiachin's captivity. If you pay close attention, verse 2 states that the 5th day is equal to the 5th year. 5 days is equal to 120 hours. 5 years is equal to 5 times 360. A biblical year equals 1,800 days. 1,800 equals the number of seconds in a half an hour. Revelation 8:1, and when he had opened the 7th seal, there was silence in heaven about the space of half an hour. Compare Genesis 8:2. The fountains also of the deep and the windows of heaven were stopped, and the rain from heaven was restrained. Heaven stopped equals silence in heaven. 30 years equals 30 days is collaborative with Ezekiel 4:6, which states that 1 day is equal to 1 year. 4 months equals 4 times 30 days in a month, which is equal to 120 days, or 120 years using Ezekiel 4:6. Genesis 6 states a man's lifetime was limited to 120 years. 30 plus 120 equals 150, which is equal to the day that the waters abated in Genesis chapter 8:2. If you read it, windows of heaven were stopped, which reminds you of Ezekiel 1:1, heavens were opened. 5 days is equal to 5 times 24 hours in a day, which is 120 hours. 4th month, Genesis 8:5, and the waters decreased continually until the 10th month. In the 10th month, on the 1st day of the month, exactly 9 months were completed, which is equal to 9 times 30, which is equal to 270 days. Were the tops of the mountains seen? Compare this with Ezekiel 1:1. The heavens were open and saw visions of God. From day 150 to the end of the 9th month is a total of 4 months, or 120 days. Most people tend to pay more attention to the 10th month, rather than the fact that exactly 4 months are what has been officially completed. The first day of the month had just started, so it's the same as saying 0 hours have passed in the first day. So this 9th month can be seen as reference to the days of Noah, and an end to the 120-day mark. Hidden cases of number 30. Daniel 12:11. And from the time that the daily sacrifice shall be taken away, and the abomination that maketh desolate set up, there shall be 1,290 days. Blessed is he that waiteth, and cometh to the 1,330 days. 30 times 42 months equals 1,260 days. 30 times 43 months is 1,290 days. 30 times 44.5 months is 1,335 days. 1,260 plus 30 equals 1,290. 1,290 plus 30 plus 30 plus 15 equals 1,335. Think times and half a time. 75 is equal to the age Abraham left for Canaan. Daniel 12:7. And I heard the man clothed in linen, which was upon the waters of the river, when he held up his right hand and his left hand unto heaven, and swear by him that liveth forever, that it shall be for a time, times, and a half. And when he shall have accomplished to scatter the power of the holy people, all these things shall be finished. Jesus is known for both walking on water and saying, "It is finished." References related to heaven opening and baptism. Revelation 19:11. And I saw heaven opened, and behold, a white horse. And he who sat on it, it is called Faithful and True, and in righteousness he judges and wages war. Revelation 19:11 points to a white horse, and the rider being faithful and true. This rider is a judge and is considered righteous. Jesus is referred to as the truth in Scripture, as well as righteous and faithful. Revelation 4:1. After these things I looked, and behold, a door standing open in heaven, and the first voice which I had heard, like the sound of a trumpet speaking with me, said, Come up here, and I will show you what must take place after these things. In Revelation 4:1, we see the same voice of God, only now it's as a trumpet. This trumpet is a reference to the Feast of Trumpets. Leviticus 23:23 through 25. And the Lord spoke to Moses, saying, Speak to the children of Israel, saying, In the 7th month, on the first day. 7th day plus the first day equals the start of the 8th month. Of the month you shall have a Sabbath rest, a memorial of blowing of trumpets, a holy convocation. You shall do no customary work on it, and you shall offer an offering made by fire to the Lord. The number 8 is not only associated with the blowing of trumpets, but with the Sabbath and circumcision. Acts 7:8. And he gave him the covenant of circumcision. And so Abraham became the father of Isaac and circumcised him on the 8th day. 8 times 24 hours equals 192 hours. And Isaac became the father of Jacob, and Jacob of the 12 patriarchs. Notice what is to be offered on the 8th day as a sacrifice in Leviticus 14:10. Leviticus 14:10. Now on the 8th day he is to take 2 male lambs without defect, and a yearling ewe lamb without defect, and 3/10 of an ephah of fine flour mixed with oil for a grain offering, and 1 log of oil. Now consider Revelation 6:6 as you look at Leviticus 14:10. Revelation 6:6. And I heard something like a voice in the center of the 4 living creatures saying, A quart of wheat for a denarius, and 3 quarts of barley for a denarius, and do not damage the oil and the wine. Now I'd like you to consider the New Testament and see the 2 lambs without defect. Luke 1:59. And it happened that on the 8th day they came to circumcise the child, and they were going to call him Zacharias after his father. Here we have John the Baptist in Luke 1:59. Luke 2:21. When the 8th day, until his circumcision had passed, he was named Jesus, the name the angel had given him before he had been conceived. And the second lamb is, of course, Jesus. Leviticus 12:3. And on the 8th day, the flesh of the boy's foreskin is to be circumcised. Circumcision is tied to the Sabbath and baptism as the purification ritual for children for the 8th day. It is also tied to Passover and the taking of the firstborn children. "30 equals 2 witnesses equals Noah's Ark." Genesis 6:15. And this is the fashion which thou shalt make of it. The length of the ark shall be 300 cubits, the breadth 50 cubits, and the height 30 cubits. 300 sacred cubits times 25.20 inches, which is the length of a cubit, sacred cubit, equals 7560 inches, equals 630 feet, equals 420 normal cubits. 50 sacred cubits times 25.20 inches equals 1260 inches, equals 105 feet, equals 70 normal cubits. 30 sacred times 25.20 inches equals 756 inches equals 63 feet equals 42 normal cubits. If you pay close attention to the conversions, you'll see how the dimensions of the ark are connected to the two witnesses. 30 sacred cubits equals 42 normal cubits. Think 42 months. 50 sacred cubits equals 1260 inches. Think number of days in 42 months equals 70 normal cubits. Think 70 weeks of Daniel. 70 weeks equals 490 days. 1 Kings 6:1 equals temple hall equals 480 year plus 3 years. Think foundation laid in the midst of the 4th year plus 7 years to completion equals 490 total years. 70 weeks of Daniel equals days of Noah equals half hour or 30-minute prophecy. Daniel 9:26, and after 62 weeks shall Messiah be cut off, but not for himself, and the people of the prince that shall come shall destroy the city and the sanctuary, and the end thereof shall be with a flood. And unto the end of the war desolations are determined. 62 weeks equals 60 plus 2 equals 62 weeks. Another calculation could be the following. 60 days times 14 days equals 840 days. 840 divides by 7 equally to get 120 weeks. Think Genesis 6:3, 120 years. 840 days divided by 2 is equal to 2 sets of 420 days. Think 2 witnesses and 42 months. 420 times 3 equals 1260. 120 times 3.5 equals 420. 3.5 years equals 1260 days. Another possibility, 3 score equals 60. 62 weeks equals 60 times 2 equals 120 days. 60 days times 24 hours equals 1440 hours. 60 times 2 equals 2 sets of 1440. Revelation 21:17, the measured wall is equal to 144 cubits. Think 144 times 2. 1 Chronicles 27:1. This is the list of the Israelites, the heads of the families, the commanders of thousands of hundreds, and their officers who served the king in every matter concerning the divisions that were on rotated military duty each month throughout the year. There were 24,000 men in each division. 24,000 times 12 tribes equals 288,000. 288,000 divided by 2 equals 144,000. 70 weeks of Daniel. If each week is 60 days, 70 times 60 equals 4,200 days. Matthew 1:17. So all the generations from Abraham to David are 14 generations, and from David until the carrying away of Babylon are 14 generations, and from carrying away into Babylon unto Christ are 14 generations. 14 times 3 equals 42 generations. Another possibility, each year equals 1 jubilee. 490 years equals 490 times 50 equals 24,500. 24,500 divided by 70 weeks equals 350. Noah after the flood. Genesis 9:28, after the flood, Noah lived 350 years. 2300 day prophecy equals 2300 divided by 50, think Jubilee, equals 46. John 2:20, 40 and 6 years was this temple in the building. Temple associated with the half-hour prophecy or 30 minutes.